Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Draft Busters podcast brought to you by Vendetta Sports Media. I'm your host, Jeremy Rinaldi, and here with me today is Trey Dauber and Matt Robertshaw. How are you guys doing today?
I'm hanging in there, Jeremy. I'm hanging in there. It's been a busy weekend. Matt already went through this, but I'm interviewing more people today. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and Matt's a new intern, so this is Matt's first appearance on a Vendetta podcast. How are you doing today, Matt?
Doing all right now. I'm just worried about Bama in the national championship, but happy for now.
Yeah, Matt's an Ohio State fan. He's got a big Monday night coming up next week. So on this week's episode, we're going to give a rundown of some of the many bowl games. We're going to give our winners and losers of bowl season, and then we're going to go into coverage about the non-playoff teams, what some of their draft options are, and then we'll get into the mailbag and answer any of your questions. All right, so now we're going to go on to the winners. Trey, who is your winner for bowl season this year?
I think, and again, this kind of goes to a theme that we should not only pay attention to when the player is there, but how he affects the team when he's not there. In the Big Ten championship game, people were so convinced that Justin Fields wasn't good. and it's something that's been laughable to me because anybody that beats Trevor Lawrence in an Elite 11 camp, I don't need to see it in college. You know, I already know that guy can play. So this past week, Justin Fields, he's on fire. He throws 6 touchdowns, and now people have been saying what I've already been saying for the past year or so, that the gap between Lawrence and Fields is a lot closer than people think. But, you know, it only took one bowl game to convince people of that. But that's another story. My takeaway is Chris Olave, because in the past, there have been Ohio State wide receivers that – is he really worth the second-round pick? Or Paris Campbell. We're not really sure what he is either, but he's starting to get a lot. And then there's guys like, you know, Cade. And they've sort of – yeah, there have been a ton of guys, but how really good are they? I think Olave has a chance to be special. He's a former 5-star recruit. And again, we saw the difference. He doesn't play in that Northwestern game, and Garrett Wilson gets all the attention, and the offense kind of stumbles a little bit. And some of that had to do with Fields hurting his hand. But I think Olave is really good. His speed's pretty much underrated. I've never seen him drop anything. I don't know if, Matt, you're a big Ohio State guy. I don't think I've ever seen Olave drop a ball. His hands are awesome.
He has the softest hands. Everything is very smooth for him. He's sneaky fast. He does not drop the ball. I mean, we saw in that game, Clemson, you could argue they were having some push-offs to get some separation. Olave in that end zone pass where you could see Fields kind of keel over. He just lost his man. He's very smooth, very quick on the turns. And yeah, he was and the fact that Northwestern's corners are a lot better than people thought.
Yeah, that's what I said in the last show, that Northwestern's defense is a lot better than people think. Yeah. You kind of hit the nail on the head when I watch Olave. It's not like the ooh, wow, twitch, you know, that I don't really ever see that, but he's so smooth. The guy constantly gets open. He never drops anything. And I think he's a lot more talented than people think.
Yeah. It's just that people don't get to see that ooh, wow, like Garrett Wilson's catch last year, like skying over someone.
Yeah, he never has that kind of play, but the guy's unbelievable.
I'll take touchdowns.
Yeah, he's just a route running technician who gets his job done, yeah.
So he's someone maybe prior to the year, he would have been someone I would have said, I don't love taking receivers in the first round, but I don't think I have any problem taking him in the first round.
I mean, if the Packers want to put him opposite,
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, that's
Packers, yeah,
dangerous. One quick amendment. So the reason Olave has actually came up, he actually came up as I believe a 3-star. So he already, even coming out of high school, didn't have the hype. Urban saw him. I just wanted to make that quick amendment. But
are you sure? I thought he was a big recruit in California.
No, he was actually Urban recruited him, another player, and found Olave. Garrett Wilson was a top flight, but Olave was actually on like the bottom 5 recruits of that recruiting class.
Really?
24/7.
Let me look this up.
he's been a tremendous success story, even coming out of that Michigan game as a true freshman, where he really burst onto the scene.
Yeah, so Olave had a big week.
Yeah, you're right.
Likely boosted draft stock a little bit.
He's the number 68 receiver.
Yep. And that also.
Why did I think he was a bigger recruit?
Because we get all the big recruits. We're getting the best wide. We got the best receivers last year. We're getting.
I must have looked at Garrett Wilson's.
Yeah,
accident.
he was top flight. I thought. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
All right, so Matt, we're on to you. Who's your winner for bowl season?
So for me, it's going to be the consistency of a breakout performance from Trey Sermon. We didn't really see all. This is actually his first start with Ohio State. Master Teague was out on the or we're going to assume the COVID list or tracing, but he was the workhorse. We saw a little bit of Mayan Williams for about 4 snaps for a drive. Aside from that, Trey Sermon was the workhorse. He wanted to get some redemption after a very good career, but an injury-plagued career at Oklahoma. But we got to see the receiving skills. I know it was a lot of route running. Clemson was dropping a lot of 7-8 DBs in the backfield to try and confuse them like they did last year. But he got the crucial first downs when needed. If you needed a 3rd and 8 and you had 4 people in front of you with 5 yards to go, he was going to muscle through. It actually reminded me a bit of Kareem Hunt from this season. He was not going to be stopped. He was running with juice, and he had the consistency coming off the Big Ten. Because, I mean, a phenomenal game, but people thought it might have been a fluke. Clemson's defense is a real deal defense. And for him to come out on the receiving end and on the rushing end, I believe it was 31 carries, 31 touches, and he never lost stride. He looked good from the start to the end. They finally keyed in on the power sweeps, but aside from that, in the fourth quarter, he was able to control the game. Ohio State was able to control the game and make it believable on those read options for Justin Fields when he needed to pick up 5 yards, that you need to focus on Sermon, which allowed the back end, and Nolan Turner started creeping up as the game came up, which proved evident as a huge part of Ohio State's success for the offense later. So Trey Sermon's a big winner for continuing his success for the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I had him last week just because he wasn't getting any touches really. So how were you supposed to evaluate him? He was my big winner for last week, and he only continued to prove that he can absolutely play.
Which was extremely important because everyone was wondering if he's hitting a stride now or if they just had a good plan against Northwestern. But it was really good for him because I'm sure everyone was thinking he might be a 6-rounder because of the injuries primarily. And I thought he was going to come in the season and be a bell cow for us, and it just didn't work out that way during the season. But, hey, he's got fresh legs when it's important.
Yeah, I mean, in 2 weeks alone, he's really boosted his draft stock. He's likely going to be a top 10 running back in this class, and he might have even cemented himself for day 2 status, maybe a late round 3 pick. So
possibly all those injuries.
2 huge games. And now he's got another chance against another great defense in Alabama to see how much more he can do.
He's a big guy too. He carries his frame well.
Oh, it's huge, a bit surprising on that power sweep when he in the first quarter. It kind of gave you – it might have just been the Superdome, but it just kind of gave you a vibe of how he was running, kind of like Zeke. And I'm not comparing at all, but it's just in the running mechanics of how he ran for one snap. But
it's like 6'2", right?
At least 6'1", 6'2". He's not a – it's really weird when he tries to be shifty because he just dances in front of people. But
I don't ever think he looks clunky, like in a bad way.
No, it just looks like it's not part of his game. I mean, it's weird when a 5'8", 235 Mayan Williams can juke someone out in comparison. But yeah, he's well coordinated for his size, but he knows his game style, and he just knew that. I mean, how low was he getting to the ground in order to get first downs when he was driving through tackles? But yeah, so
their offensive line did a hell of a job too. I don't think that should be understated.
Yeah, Matt Jones was a very capable backup at left guard, and someone to watch for when Josh Myers and Wyatt Davis are likely to leave after this season.
Yeah. So I'm shifting gears a little bit with mine. My winner's not going to be a guy from the college football playoff. Mine's Zach Wilson. I dropped his scouting report right before the game. And in this game, he goes off 26 for 34 for 425 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and he's had 2 rushing touchdowns. And there was a lot of debate during that game whether he was above Justin Fields, and Fields might have shut that down a couple nights ago. But, I mean, Zach Wilson, the things that you got to know, his deep ball accuracy was just on point all game. And his ability to extend plays and make throws on the run is something that's really going to intrigue some NFL teams. I had a late first-round grade on him. I'm not totally sold that he's a top 5 guy in the class, top 10 guy in the class. I don't think he's going to be comparable to Patrick Mahomes, which me and Matt discussed a little bit before the show. I just don't see that. But he's going to need some time in the NFL to learn. He doesn't really have to go through that many complex schemes. He doesn't have to face that many complex schemes either. But the raw talent is there. I mean, you saw it in that game. I mean, 425 passing yards. UCF just could not stop him. His receivers were getting open a lot, but he was hitting every throw, every tight window. He would fit the throw in there. So I think Zach Wilson's going to definitely be a top 10, probably top 5 pick.
Can I discuss your scouting report post?
Sure. Go ahead.
Because we can say all the things about, he belongs in this round, or he belongs in this round, or he belongs in this round. At the end of the day, if you draft a quarterback in the first round, you have to be willing to hand him $150 million in 5 years. It's not, hey, I think he belongs in this range or this range or in this range. Are you paying him $150 million or not? Otherwise, you can't draft him. So that's a decision you have to make.
You'd rather pay that in 5 years rather than 4 years.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of debate, like even Trubisky.
Oh, God, come on. Hold
on. I'm not saying he should get it. I'm not saying he should get it, but there's debate right now is like, what if he gets them into the playoffs? And I'm not saying he should get it. But I'm saying there's debate.
Is that a serious debate?
Not 150 million, but there's debate as to whether or not Trubisky's going to get another contract with Chicago. I don't think he should.
Sure, he can get another year for $8 million. That's fine.
Yeah,
yeah. No one's going to argue with that. I mean, sure. If Drew Brees goes to Fox Sports, where he's alleged to go, I mean, sure, the Saints can have him and Winston duke it out. But yeah, that's.
No, I was saying like it takes a little time for
sure
quarterback to get in his zone with the team, and I think that not all teams are going to fit Zach Wilson's play style. I don't know.
He's going to need he's going to need a specific scheme to help him out, along with someone to mentor him through the process, because he has not faced that good a competition unless you want to count Coastal Carolina.
Right, and I don't know. I'm not going to count them still.
Yeah,
I like him with San Francisco or maybe Carolina, but we'll get into that a little later when we discuss the draft options. So before we go into the losers for bowl season, let's just hear a quick word from our sponsor.
The following broadcast is brought to you in association by XP Coffee Company. XP Coffee Company is the fresh brewed coffee made for gamers by gamers. Get amazing flavors like Choco Loco in 8, 12, or 16-ounce bags, or level up and get Illusion, Isolation, Nightmare, or the Majestic Throne blends in light, medium, or dark roast in whole bean, coarse French press, drip, or fine espresso in 12-ounce, 16-ounce, or 2-pound bags. Wow! Shipping worldwide. If you're in the U.S., go to usa.xpcoffee.co. If you're in Europe or in the U.K., go to www.xpcoffee.co. XP Coffee Company, for gamers, by gamers.
All right, so we're back here, and now we're going to discuss the losers of bowl season. Trey, who is your loser?
I'm going to go with Kyle Trask, and I've kind of been down on him, but he's had a bunch of big games this year. He's even in the Heisman conversation. And before the year started, I wrote something that this guy's got a long way to go before he's a franchise NFL quarterback. Now, he's gotten a little better this year, but This is now the second game we've seen him without Kyle Pitts. The first game against LSU, he was kind of a disaster. He was even more of a disaster against Oklahoma. He threw 3 bad picks. They were never in the game for a second. And maybe some of it you can say, oh, Dan Mullen, he's out here saying we shouldn't have even showed up to the game, which that's a different topic for another day. But Trask looked bad. And one of the biggest things that concerns me with him is a lot of these quarterbacks that are coming into the league, they can at least pick up a first down with their legs. They don't have to be, running around like Kyler Murray. But Kyle Trask has 2 left feet. He's got his foot. I almost don't know how he can make it because he's so unathletic. And maybe that wouldn't have been an issue 20 years ago, but it's kind of an issue now. And, God, he didn't even look like he could play this week against Oklahoma.
Yeah, it seems like he's going to be one of those guys who needs – it's not even saying a field general or a game manager, because it feels like he needs – like Dallas's weapons in order to be, because he has some great weapons at Florida. He has a good offensive scheme for him, but it seems like he kind of needs some help being carried a little bit. He'll get it to the weapons, but if the weapons aren't there, like if he goes to like Denver or not or whatever in the second round, he's got some decent weapons to work with. But if he goes to, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but a Jacksonville or something like that, and he has to win the game on his own, that's kind of the key difference between the top 3, top 4 of Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, maybe Lance, and him. That's kind of the difference, is he going to be the one to win the game when his star receiver's out with cramps or whatnot in the fourth quarter.
I just thought his feet are so bad.
Yeah.
And some of those like design quarterback runs, they don't give him a chance, because he's not going to look good on a quarterback run, especially like on third down at third down and 9 on the 9 or whatever.
He'll get you 2 yards. But
think of some of the quarterbacks that are coming out in the league, though. You got a Watson, a Mahomes, Fields is coming in, Lawrence is coming in. They're like not just a little bit more athletic than him. They're a lot of bit more athletic than him.
I am thoroughly pissed off with how fast Lawrence is. I hate it. I hate how fast.
But it's a big part of the game now. It's a huge part of the game.
It is, when protected properly, because no one wants to pull another RG3 and get your guy hurt and wrapped up.
Yeah.
But yeah, when done properly, 3-4 times a game, 3rd and 3 for a quarterback power. I mean, how many counters was Clemson running with Lawrence in a 3rd and short scenario?
The goal line play early in the game, that was huge.
Yeah. I mean, Baron Browning is going to test in the 4.5s probably. He's a freak of an athlete.
Lawrence is going to run a good time.
And he was like, bye.
Baron Browning is a very good athlete. Yeah.
Lawrence is going to run a really good time. I don't know what Trask runs.
He's not going to run because he's smart.
Yeah.
I said the same thing about Jacob Eason. I have a hard time believing Trask is going to run a 5.0.
It's not going to be fast enough, whatever it is.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, who do you have for a player who's maybe on the downswing after bowl season?
So in continuation with a caveat, Sean Wade, I think schematically they were trying to avoid big plays and going to cover 3 or cover high, 1 single safety. And once anyone got to that 9-10 yard marker in their routes, he was bailing up, because they did not want, all season long they have been torched by free safeties taking an under route 12 yards in when they have single high responsibilities. And Sevyn Banks and Wade were bailing out early at the first down markers in order to prevent any big plays, and which worked. There were no big plays aside from one in the first quarter, and credit to their Clemson wide receivers. But he did not look coordinated. He looked better in press in the fourth quarter a little bit. The PIs here or there, whether it's catchable or not, he used the boundary a little too much. But he didn't look coordinated. Making tackles after the play wasn't really his jam, which last year as a slot receiver in the slot corner and in the nickel, that was why he was better, is because he was such a good tackler and he was so aggressive into it. And because of his physical skills, he's probably still going to make it in the first round or late or like early second. But getting lost in space and being shook by Powell so well. Credit to Powell. He had a great game. He showed up Sean Wade, who is an athletically gifted corner. But in zone coverage, he did not look that great. However, it could have just been said that no one gets past you 15 yards deep. But he did not look great. He stumbled a lot. And Powell scored a touchdown by shaking him dizzy. It looked like he got spun around and fell to the ground dizzy, which sucks. But if you can't prove it on the field when it mattered.
Yeah, one of my biggest things is I better be able to not see you on defense. I'm not looking at everybody on the field, but don't make me notice you. Yeah. And Wade was an eyesore out there, not just because he was giving up plays, but this guy's falling over.
Yeah,
he's
he
on
fell
the
over
ground
a couple times. We didn't talk about Amari Rodgers until a missed throw in the third quarter because Seven Banks was doing a good job and they were bracketing coverage onto him. And it made me kind of think of Byron Maxwell with the Seahawks when Richard Sherman was in his prime. He was getting every single target and he had to perform. But this time it was kind of flipped, and he had some good moments, but his bad moments were bad. He gave up touchdowns.
Yeah, and Trey, you talk about that with Patrick Surtain of Alabama a lot. That
they don't throw the ball to him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I see you write down about him a lot, which, yeah, it's true. I think for Sean Wade, I mean, for a coach who wants him, just let him stick to what he's good at. I mean, he's proven this year that outside corner's not his game and that he should go back to nickel corner.
He is very lucky that slot corners make a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even that he still has a chance to go in like the first round. Like bring up Noah Igbenogany from Auburn, who Miami took at 30. He's just a slot corner guy. I'm a Miami fan. I didn't like the pick, but I guess you can go in the first round. And I don't think Wade's going to go in the first round anymore.
If you have Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, it makes a little bit of a difference too.
Yep.
Yeah. So my loser for bowl season going along with that is going to be on the other side, Darion Kendrick, the cornerback from Clemson. And I've discussed him a little bit before. Trey, I know we talked about him a little bit in the Slack group chat at one point. I know how good of an athlete he is. I know he was a converted wide receiver. I get that. But, I mean, he just does not look like he can be a number one corner. And there's talks of him going in the first round, and I just think that's crazy. The thing about him is every time he's presented with a chance to tackle, he seems to shy away from trying to tackle, or he cannot make the tackle when a running back gets to the outside or when a receiver, catches a curl route on him. It just looks like he struggles to make tackles. And I mean, for a converted wide receiver, I mean, he just didn't look like he was able to mirror some of the routes that the guys like Olave or Garrett Wilson were running on him. He just didn't look like he was able to keep up with them. And so I think that's pretty concerning. And I know, he's very raw and he has the chance to improve. But I mean, if someone catches the ball in front of him, he can't tackle them. He's going to need help tackling them. And if someone beats him, he's not going to be able to catch up to them. So I'm going to have a tough time making the case for Darion Kendrick to go, top 50 in the draft.
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't think that he was a good marker for Olave's speed. I did not think that Olave should have burnt him on that post route. It looked like he was playing to the boundary and thought Nolan Turner was going to help, and he almost did, but he got sucked up from play action, and I didn't think that Kendrick would get burnt by Olave that bad, but he left him. So more tape review for him, but yeah, it was interesting because we had been hearing talk of late first round for him, possibly ahead of like Campbell or Wade. People thought they could substitute Wade for him, so more tape.
Yeah, and I think he still might go in the first round.
Yeah.
And I mean, people have compared him to AJ Terrell from last year, but I mean, they're completely different players. AJ Terrell is dominant all year. Just Jamar Chase beat him.
Yeah, okay.
Jamar Chase beat him, and then beat him, and then beat him some more. He had a good first quarter against Chase. That's fine.
But I mean, Terrell's looked good for Atlanta. So
I do want to point out one thing about Kendrick. Now, the entire defense got killed in this game, but if you go back and watch, I don't know if you watched the Clemson-Miami game, he came away with some unbelievable interceptions. His ball skills, I would imagine, are really, really good.
Yeah, he's up in that conversation for a reason.
Yeah. Some of the interceptions he made against Miami, there's not a lot of dudes that come away with that ball. So I would encourage people to, if they haven't seen that game, to watch it because there's a reason why he's being talked about. It's hard to find corners with that kind of ball skills.
The thing that worries me with him is just the tackling. Like, he struggles to just bring anybody down. And, like, when a running back, like I said, gets to the outside, Kendrick has little chance to get him down. So that's just one thing that, I mean, he's got to improve if he's going to be a top corner in the league. I mean, if someone catches a pass in front of you, you got to be able to bring him down or at least push him out of bounds.
That was never a concern with your guy Okuda.
No. Oh, good Lord, no.
Yeah.
He would. Oh man, he played some mess him up football.
Yeah.
He was. God, don't make me think of the glory days.
It's kind of the glory days. You're in the playoff or in the finals.
Yeah, but my main concern is still the quarterback or still the secondary. I miss him so much. God, I can't wait for someone to use him properly and for him to get an offseason in Detroit because it's been abysmal for all defenders, sans Chase Young, for any rookie defenders this year.
Especially
Okuda
if
has
you played in
been,
Detroit.
yeah, it's been rough. But someone's going to get the toolsiest cornerback you can imagine with no ego, sans thank you, Jalen Ramsey. Yeah, if he gets paid, we'll see what happens. But
All right, so that'll do it for that discussion portion of the podcast. And now we're going to go on to some draft options for some non-playoff teams. And before we do that, let's hear another word from our sponsor.
The following broadcast is brought to you in association by Forever Grips. Go to forevergripsgaming.com for all of your affordable gaming accessories. Need new grips for your analog sticks? They've got it. Need to swag up your controller or console, including the Xbox Series X or PS5? They've got it. Need a sweet mouse pad to complete your setup? Go to forevergripsgaming.com now. Act now and use the Vendetta Sports Media promo code VSM15 at checkout to get 15% off of your purchase. That's right, 15% off by using our promo code VSM15. Forever Grips, the best accessories for the best prices are with Forever Grips.
All right, we're back. Now on to the next portion. We're going to discuss some draft options for some non-playoff teams. So we're going to start at the top of the draft, teams like Jacksonville and the New York Jets. I'm assuming we all have the same idea for what these teams are going to do, but guys, we're thinking quarterback for both of these teams.
Well, I think it's kind of obvious. I think the bigger question is, do you take Justin Fields or do you trade the pick and keep Sam Darnold to build around him? I think that's probably the biggest question for the Jets.
I was about to say, what? Darnold's not the savior anymore? Oh, good, we got a dog.
Yeah.
I think for the Jets, it'll be very interesting whether it comes down to Fields or Wilson or their thoughts on either. It's too high to take players like Rousseau, Surtain, Jamar Chase, maybe, but the Jets and high draft picks on wide receivers has not worked out well. The Panthers, if they are in that late teens, depending on the new GM that they bring after saying that Marty Aherney will not be renewed, it'll be very interesting if they want Fields, if they want to make sure about a Lance, a Wilson, if they want to be sure that, and because they just keep winning, or they win the inconvenient games, that they keep dropping their draft spot currently at 9. But 9's not that big of a reach. It's a big reach to 2, so they're going to give up capital. But you try to find a trade partner, because if you don't need the quarterback that bad, because the Jets have a lot of holes, and more than just that Seattle pick is going to take care of.
I think they had the worst roster in the league by a mile.
I don't know. I'd just be shocked if they didn't take a quarterback. Because, how are you going to win if you don't have a good quarterback? And, I'm not saying Darnold.
I like Darnold personally. I think he's got a bad rap.
He's got no support. Jamison Crowder is a nice piece. I was excited when they got Denzel Mims. But, when you're busting, and Frank Gore is no slouch. Frank Gore will give you everything he's got. He got his 16,000, and now he's mysteriously disappeared. But he's got nothing to work with.
And Gase is his coach. Look at the difference in Tannehill.
For now.
Right.
That's very true.
I mean, as a Dolphins fan, I was fine when we let Tannehill go, and it's fine to see him succeed. He wasn't a fit there because he wasn't doing good before Gase was there. I never really liked him there. But, yeah, in Jacksonville, obviously Lawrence, unless they go with Fields, which –
I am very interested to see. It shouldn't change anything, but if the rumors are true about Urban Meyer expected to take that job. Now, hearsay there's because the season's not over. Marone has not been relieved of duties, although it is expected, and depends on the GM scenario. But if Urban Meyer does take that job, he will want some say in personnel. Now, I still think Lawrence would be the pick, but it at least entertains the idea that Cliff Kingsbury wanted Kyler Murray. He got Kyler Murray. But it'll be very interesting based on those coaching decisions and who they bring in. But it should be Lawrence.
He would never have more insight on Justin Fields.
Exactly.
He would have all the information he needs.
Well, plus, even with the first pick, you have to do your due diligence on all the top prospects. You can't just say, we're getting this guy. You can't just say that in January. You got to do your due diligence on all these guys.
And they could make the Jets pay a ransom if he was comfortable with Fields and he knows that everyone and their mother and the Jets and their UK owner want Trevor Lawrence. How much do you want to pay for one pick up? It'd be kind of stupid, because you could just take Lawrence, be happy, and end the day. But if he was comfortable with knowing that Fields is there at 2, how much does it cost to?
I almost feel like I might do that depending on the price. Yeah,
because if it's not going to be the team redacted trade for RG3. It's not going to be that. But if the Jets give up that Seattle and a couple of 2s.
Oh, I would have said it would take me like 3 ones. You want to swap?
No, you stay staunch on that. You get the Bo Callahan trade.
That's what I was thinking.
But I mean, if you're good with Fields, and he's gonna be there at 2, I mean the Jets have 2 first-round picks.
I would want 2 more. Give me 2 more in the future.
Yeah, exactly. But it's something to entertain. But Lawrence should be the pick, no matter who's there. If Urban's there, it creates another month of speculation of, is it Fields, is it not? But Fields didn't play with Urban. He played with Ryan Day. Sure, Urban loves him, but he was there. Fields was there with Day. So there's not as much of a connection other than recruiting him out of high school.
Yeah. All right, so moving on a little bit, up in the draft, Miami's locked in at a top 5 pick thanks to the trade with Houston for Laramie Tunsil. They're going to be picking between picks 3
Billy
and 5.
O'Brien.
Right now, we're at 3. We're slotted at 3. What do you guys think Miami should do?
They have to take the Oregon left tackle. They have
Penny
to.
Sewell. Yeah.
They have to.
I agree, yeah.
Left tackles like that don't grow on trees.
Right.
Especially when you traded Laramie Tunsil for that pick and you get someone who is going, for all intents and purposes, like people are thinking this is pre-draft hype, Tony Mandarich, lock, stock, like this is the best they've seen. Tony Mandarich, different story, but that pre-draft hype, he's when you are able to get someone better, potentially better than Laramie Tunsil in that trade for him, it's a no-brainer, especially because who else would it be? There's people speculating on quarterback if Tua is the answer or not, but he needs protection and weapons in order to find out.
Right now, he doesn't really have either.
Yeah, and I mean,
and Fitzpatrick's contract is coming up at the end of the year too.
He's not as tall as this guy, but I don't think I remember a left tackle being this hyped since Jonathan Ogden.
Ogden was a beast. Him and Orlando Pace around that same era. Yeah, it's especially after 2 years of film and being as a true freshman, everyone was like, "This is the dude." There's never been like the dude since a freshman year. Yeah, it should be him. Other names to consider, however, if they fall back, if Cincy comes up for Penei Sewell, because those are the two main teams for him, is Micah Parsons. Just because he's a plugger, he will fix your issues. Him next to Jerome Baker would be very nice and athletic, but it should be Penei Sewell if things stay the way they are.
Yeah, I'd prefer if we waited on a linebacker where we need to take one. I mean, we have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, so I think we can find a guy there in round 2. And
thanks, Billy O.
I don't like taking receivers.
Good God, how did he do this so well though? Anytime that they have a bad year, it's like a prediction that they trade a first rounder. Buy it now. They're going to go in the top 5.
I think give him a second rounder for Cooks.
I'm very happy with Denzel Ward, and the Brock Osweiler trade got us Nick Chubb, so I'm all good with that.
Yeah, and I mean, like I was saying, I'll be the first to admit we definitely need a receiver. I don't like taking receivers in the first round, but I think this year it's definitely warranted. But we do have another first-round pick, which is our own.
Yep.
Matt Collins is a starter for you guys, and he couldn't make Philadelphia's roster.
Yeah, and Philadelphia doesn't have any receivers. So, I mean, it'll be between 20 and 26, 27. So that's a perfect spot for receiver. We talked about Olave earlier.
If they fall out of that spot, also Jamar Chase could be if they fall out of that 3 spot. If they get the first non-quarterback expected spot, it should be Penei Sewell. But Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons are the rumors.
I think so. So then the next group of teams, we got teams like the Atlanta Falcons, Cincinnati Bengals, and Philadelphia Eagles. They're all not going to be making the playoffs. They're all going to have top in between probably 3 through 8 picks. So for some teams like that, what do you guys think that they should do?
Fire Howie Roseman. For Philadelphia, they kind of need everything. Roseman has just done such a bad job drafting that if a guy like Chase is there, they have to pull the trigger. When you miss out on Metcalf and take Arcega-Whiteside instead, when you take Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, you gotta at some point make up for that mistake.
And it's also there for a if they're there, because if the Bengals are out there in front and Penei Sewell's gone and they don't value Cosme, the tackle out of Darisaw or Slater, if they don't value those guys as highly, because it probably shouldn't as a top 5 unless they would trade back. Penei Sewell's gone. You think about Jamar Chase. If you put Jamar Chase back with Joey Burrow, protected Joey Burrow, it's very appealing. So that could be where he comes off. But the Eagles have a lot of ground to make up, and especially with contracts that are not up, that because things are just lingering for them. They have players who are going to linger.
$75 million over the cap next year.
Yep, and the issue with if they were to move on from Wentz, they shouldn't, because that cap would be an absolute disaster after that. But money's being allocated in places where it's very dangerous, and especially with rumors about Ertz.
Just to go
back, what was the other team up there? Not Cincinnati.
Atlanta.
Atlanta needs, if one of those top quarterbacks is there, they have to do it.
That's what I was going to say. Do we think Atlanta takes a quarterback? I still haven't decided yet. I think we were talking yesterday a bit about some Julio Jones trade buzz. If you could trade him,
they're not a Super Bowl team anymore.
Exactly. If you could trade him, I would trade him. And then you could make the same argument for Matt Ryan. If they're not a Super Bowl team, if they're not a contender, you got to move on. The same thing can, I guess, be said for Matthew Stafford, which Detroit, depending on if they win today against Minnesota, they might not have the ability to take a quarterback.
That's Trey Lance territory for them. It's so interesting because we know these quarterbacks are going to need some time. Zach Wilson probably more so of the top 4. But if you have Trey Lance, and Stafford's contract is not that tradable, it's not that easy to obtain. But if you have a Justin Fields who might have just played his way to the second pick, depending on what they think, Zach Wilson is very talented. But in that mix, Matt Ryan, I think, is a very good person to study under. And if anything, you can trade him at the deadline for someone who has a QB injury next year. But it's a lot of sit and wait. I think Justin Fields would need some time. Sometimes he gets flustered trying to play some hero ball. But he's capable of doing it. So I think sitting for 4 games would benefit him.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know how NFL ready Trey Lance is. Like, I know you said you think Zach Wilson might need the most time. I think
Lance also as well.
Time. Like, he just has 1 year starting in an FCS offense where they didn't play any FBS competition really. So, and the raw talent and abilities there, we've seen it. I've watched a bit of him. I've watched him since the summer, but I saw flashes for sure. But he's definitely time to adjust.
For Lance will need time as well. I was more so saying it was more of the top 3 when I think of Atlanta's pick, because when you get to Trey Lance, you're thinking of Detroit, Carolina, Denver. If
Minnesota, please.
Minnesota's where
I can't watch another snap of Kirk Cousins.
That's where I think right now. That's where I want Lance to go. Would be Minnesota. Yeah, because of Kirk Cousins, they are not going to win anything with Kirk Cousins. And just before we move on to just the last couple, I just wanted to add to the Cincinnati. I know you were saying wide receiver. I think they could wait on wide receiver a little bit. They got a lot of needs. And, I mean, in the first round, I think they have T. Higgins. They have Tyler Boyd. A.J. Green's there. He's not good, but he's there.
He won't be next year.
That contract's up after this year.
I mean, they still got Higgins and Boyd, so I don't think they need to pull the trigger on a receiver in the first round. I think if a guy like, say, Patrick Surtain is still there, or a couple offensive tackles always come up in the first round, so I'm sure by, like, March we'll have a better idea of some of these top offensive tackles.
With Alexander and Jackson coming up on contract, it's going to be interesting for their cornerback situation, especially for what Mike Brown has always liked to have in the days of Marvin Lewis. Caleb Farley would be very interesting for them. Bit high at 5, but if they want corner, you get corner.
Cincinnati, they never trade either. Never.
My corner's been JC Horn too, so Horn had a big year. So if he can get up there, Horn's a guy I really like.
Yeah.
All right, just the last couple teams. We touched on Carolina a little bit. So we got around the 10 areas, Carolina, the New York Giants, depending on whether or not them along with Dallas can maybe make the playoffs. And
let's not touch the NFC least right now. No one knows anyone who's going to pick where other than the Eagles.
It'll be changed by today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so we got Carolina and Denver. And we touched a little bit Carolina maybe pulling the trigger, trading up for a quarterback.
Yeah, so I think for that, it's also going to be they're going to wish, just like last year, people were thinking, okay, Kuechly's gone, Isaiah Simmons as like a potential fit to try and round out. Their dream would be Micah Parsons if they want to stay, because they did pay Teddy. Teddy's getting paid. That's not going to change. He got a good amount of guaranteed money, at least for coming into this year. And I'm sure their eyes are up in Chapel Hill about Sam Howell potentially next year. So they have a grasp on next year, especially if they're picking at 9. That's where that top 3 gets really risky. And if you're comfortable with a Trey Lance. But depending on the GM that they get, Matt Rule could have some more say on personnel. College coaches would like to have that. If they were to trade up to a 2 or trade up with Cincinnati, Cincinnati doesn't trade. I think it'd be very interesting just because they're on that outside looking in where, like, are you comfortable with Lance, or could you get a Parsons or a Kyle Pitts? Because their tight ends since Greg Olson's have been absolutely disastrous. Manhurts is up after this year anyway, and Ian Thomas has just not developed the way they thought. So Pitts could be a possibility along with Parsons. if they cannot get themselves in that top 3 quarterback range.
I feel like I have no feel on what Carolina is going to do. They used every single pick last year on defense.
And I love that. I hope the Browns do that this year because God, we need it. But and it was well worth it. They're statistically seen.
Derek Brown's been really good.
Season. He's coming up, and I was excited for that pick. But this is also a spot for Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain, depending. So keep plugging up the defense unless you have a quarterback or maybe Kyle Pitts, depending on what you feel is necessary. It all depends on the GM who comes in.
Yeah, I like corner here as well. And then I talked a little bit in the last episode about Kyle Pitts maybe going to Carolina. I don't know if Joe Brady leaves, I don't know what that offense is going to look like. I feel like it might be with Bridgewater. Without Joe Brady, I think it might be a little stagnant. So if they keep Brady, I'd love to see Kyle Pitts there for sure. And then I don't know if they'll trade up to take a quarterback because like you said, they're probably not going to be a good team again next year. So they'll be in the top half of the draft next year. So they could always look towards next year for a quarterback.
Matt Rule historically has had really bad teams his first year and they kind of explode later on.
Yeah.
He has a good track record. I enjoyed for the brief 2 weeks post the Big Ten championship of Carolina if you had Justin Fields. I'm like, no, I'm in. No, that has not been the case anymore, and I'm quite sad about it.
I'm just glad Miami's at 3 right now.
Yeah.
And then so lastly, we got Denver. I think this is
that's another team they used all their picks basically on offense for how long? Judy and KJ Hamler went back to back.
And then they took the tight end from Missouri too, Albert
Okui Boom.
Yep.
Noah Fant the year before in the first round.
Yeah.
Drew Lock in the second round.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're going to keep Fangio, so you would think.
I think they need like an edge rusher, or even they could go corner as well.
Well, they have Von Miller and Bradley Chubb.
Well, I will say Von Miller has been injured recently, and he has a club option coming up for his contract. It's somewhat rumored that he might be let go for cap. Chubb finally got his year this year after being injured his rookie year. So that's potential, but that's nothing yet to be seen because of that club option. But if they're going to be a losing team for the next couple of years, paying Von Miller really doesn't move the needle for them. So that's something to look for, but also in the interior. Every time I think of John Elway, I keep thinking that he's going to fall before the bowl game, that he was going to fall for a Kyle Trask type. I know, but it's John Elway, and he doesn't make the best sense out of quarterbacks.
Good point.
But that's more of a second round observation.
Are we sure?
Mac Jones at pick 11.
If Mac, I need to do more on Mac Jones. He has a phenomenal cast around him.
Yeah, he's got that right now.
And in the next game with Sark, I'm assuming Sark will not be calling plays. We'll see how the offensive scheme was working for him. But he makes all the throws. But he also has an amazing cast around him. So it's one of those things where we see if it's him or if it's the cast. I
think he's the hardest guy to evaluate for the quarterbacks.
He really is. He really is. But he is playing himself into the first round for a very good reason, because he does not lose games, which is an Alabama specialty, is a quarterback not losing the game for them.
And you can see he's more talented than a guy like A.J. McCarron.
Yes, Jacob Coker and all those.
You can see he's clearly more talented than those guys. So
yeah,
he's going to be a tough one.
Yeah,
but Patrick. This is another spot for Patrick Surtain and whatnot.
Denver's such a tricky eval because, I mean, I still don't know if Drew Lock is like, sometimes Drew Lock will have a really good game and then he'll just blow up for the next 3, and then he'll have another really good game. So he's tough to get a grasp on. I think that's a spot if like a veteran quarterback, maybe someone like Fitzpatrick can go, or I mean, we said it was unlikely, but if Carson Wentz gets traded, I don't know, Denver could be a potential spot for some of those guys.
Same for Stafford and that arm strength in the Colorado Air. But
Stafford, Darnold.
It's really tough for them because they need help at safety if Simmons goes. If they don't extend Simmons, and if they aren't able to solidify that, they're going to have some issues. And it's not a strong safety class unless Sean Wade converts, and then it's somewhat okay. But it's not a top-of-the-line safety class for them.
Yeah, and it's tough to take the first-round safety anyway. I like the guy from TCU who just declared Trayvon Mulrig. He's very good.
A lot of the news is going to be on that Von Miller decision, though.
Yeah, I don't know if I would take any safety in the first round. All right, so we got one more section to go over. We're just going to answer some questions from the mailbag. Before we do that, let's hear from another one of our sponsors.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. In case you hadn't heard, your favorite Renegade Sports Media Group has its own Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media to support our efforts to continuously bring you sports, gaming, and other media coverage as only we can. We've got 4 different membership tiers. For $3 a month, we'll give you a simple thank you on our Patreon site. For $6 a month, you get a thank you, and you get to become a recruit in Jackson Law's Vendetta University Gaming Series. For $10 a month, you get everything from the previous tiers, a special thank you at the end of our videos, free access to our upcoming Discord chat, and a free koozie after 4 months. And then the big dog, $50 a month, gets you everything from the previous tiers, as well as opportunities for Fantasy League invites, stream gaming, possible invites to mock NFL and NBA draft sessions, a once-a-month Google Hangout, and after 4 months, a free t-shirt. Yeah! Go to patreon.com/Vendetta Sports Media and help us to improve our pledge to bring you the best sports, gaming, and other media coverage.
All right, we're back. And for the final segment of the Draft Busters podcast, we're going to go over some questions for the mailbag. So one question we got here is, should a prospect's draft stock alter or be affected if they opt out of a bowl game? So what do you guys think about that?
I think it kind of depends. If it's someone like Micah Parsons, I don't care. If it's someone like Jamie Newman, maybe I kind of needed to see Jamie Newman. So I think it really depends. Jamar Chase, I don't need to see any more of him. I don't care if he plays. But Jamie Newman, I mean, I would have loved to see Jamie Newman this year, especially since he played at Wake Forest, now in Georgia. What could he have done with a better supporting cast? So I really think it just depends on who it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's some decisions that are pretty surprising. Like, we talked a little bit about Florida. Trayvon Grimes was a receiver who opted out of the bowl game. I think that would have been a good spot for him to be the number 1 receiving option because Tony and Pitts weren't playing. So that was a decision that I think if he played in that game, I mean, Florida was down. They were going to throw the whole game. So I think that would have been a good spot for someone like him to boost his stock a little bit. And then we've talked about other guys. We went over some of the winners, guys like that we didn't bring up from Georgia, Azeez Ojulari, who if he opted out, no one would be talking about him as the potential edge rusher number 1, who he dominated the second half against Cincinnati. So I think if there's people around you who are opting out and maybe you're not like the top guy, I think you should play.
I think it's a traditionalist view that we all get why, especially for this year, because half of the fun were the bowl games themselves. You get some free swag, you get the experience of being in the city, in the city where it's located for the bigger ones. And this year, it's kind of taken away with COVID restrictions and whatnot. And you just might want to be done. You don't want to risk anything. But it's also the ghost of Jalen Smith. Blew out his knee, hurt his draft stock.
He lost millions.
He lost millions. He was going to be a first-round pick, possibly top 15, top 10. He was very special. I was there, or I was not there. I was there watching the game. He was very special, and that he landed in a good spot for him. Very fortunate for the Cowboys, but that's why. That's why people are going out along with the COVID, taking the fun out of it. Although if you were in the Fiesta Bowl, you all got a PlayStation 5, good for you. Don't opt out of that. But it really depends. Like, I give Kyle Trask props for all of his weapons leaving and him still deciding to go game. But it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you if your weapons, the key parts of your system, leave you behind in the dust to fumble it up. So it depends on the situations and the positions as well. Quarterbacks, everyone wants as much tape as they can get on any given quarterback. But for receiver, Jamar Chase, we didn't need to see anymore. He toasted Terrell and anyone who he saw except for Dantzler. But we all understood that he was good, point proven. It all depends on your position and what you have left.
Yeah, like North Carolina last night, the two running backs weren't there. I'm fine with them opting out, both Carter and Williams. I saw enough of them during the season where I saw what I needed to see. But a receiver like De'Ami Brown is a guy that, maybe I think he could have benefited from staying and playing in that game, alongside Daz Newsome. But I think it definitely depends on, what your current draft stock is, or if you're one of the top guys at your position, then I think you're fine. But if you're not, then I think playing might be the smarter option.
Yeah, Trayvon Grimes is a bit surprising for that. He's proven himself a good weapon, but he's been weapon number 3 in that offense. So, having the number 1 targets would have been nice for him to prove himself.
Right. So another question we got here, Trey, we've talked about this a little bit, is should any running backs be selected in the first round? And what are our opinions on guys like Travis Etienne and Najee Harris?
No, they should not be selected in the first round. I'm not the super anti first round running back, but I feel like if you're going to be a first round running back, you need to be Chris Johnson level good. So I don't think either of these guys are Chris Johnson level good. To me, Najee Harris has been my first ranked guy all year, but he's someone I would be comfortable taking in the second round. I'm not even sure if he's better than J.K. Dobbins, to be honest. J.K. Dobbins was unbelievable.
He was – good Lord, thank God he got out of that.
To get him at – I think he was number 57 overall. That's the ideal.
I was pissed. I was so pissed. Because it made the most sense. But, this – especially for this year, I like – if Etienne finds his way onto the Dolphins in that second first-round pick, we can get that because they didn't take anyone last year. And if you want to roll with Ahmed and Gaskin, fine. I wouldn't want to, especially if you're trying to evaluate Tua properly and give him some air to breathe, because those guys just aren't going to do it. But if you're running that same system where those guys work, Etienne will definitely work. Najee Harris in the second round, either running back from North Carolina would be interesting, but not in the first round. Just this year isn't the year for a first round running back, especially for positional value.
Yeah, a quick note on Etienne. I wrote this in my college football post, but the more I see him, the less I don't like him. He has some games where his stat line's like 10 carries, 30 yards.
Yeah,
like all the time. Like, are we sure he's not a glorified third down back where he's a good pass catcher? I'm not denying that part.
So real quick throwing this in there. ESPN is saying that Wentz is going to ask for a trade eventually.
Oh boy.
Good luck with that. Was that 60 mil on dead cap?
Yeah.
I do think he'll have suitors though. I think Indianapolis will want him.
Indy.
You think that Pittsburgh wouldn't?
They should.
Yeah. Any guy who has like a year left with their current quarterback, just to put the broken pieces back together.
He was awesome with Frank Reich. I think Indianapolis would be willing to make a move.
Who wouldn't want to play in a dome stadium?
This might be Rivers' last game today. Yeah.
Yeah.
But back to Etienne.
Yeah.
There's something about him to where I feel like he bounces around too much and he tries to make the big play. He's great when he hits the home run, but there's a lot of times where he comes out of the game and he's got like 20 rushing yards. The Notre Dame game was brutal. Yeah. And Notre Dame has a good front, but we saw Najee Harris can get things going. And Clemson's offensive line isn't, stupendous, but there's a lot of games where Etienne, he leaves a lot of yards on the table.
Yeah. And I was scared of him going into the Ohio State game. I was very impressed that we were able to bottle him up. But this is also part of the discussion.
Well, I would say it's got a good D-line, though.
Yeah, but we've been exposed before to other backs, especially with running quarterbacks, so we keyed in on that. Aside from that, though, this was part of the discussion. If he was the number one of number ones coming into the season when he surprisingly came back for his senior year, and we're talking, this is a good point for Najee Harris taking over because he's just going to fit most schemes. He's 6'2", 230, and he was hurdling people like that hurdle was absolutely insane.
That was
Derek. I loved when everyone was curious about Leonard Fournette's big burly nature and not being able. He had the lowest vertical. That's not going to be an issue with Najee Harris, but it's whether or not their first round necessary. Is your team going to be so much better with them, or is it you just need a running back to help your quarterback breathe?
I feel like I can find someone in the 5th, 6th round that might be able to be 90% of Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I agree.
People like Philip Lindsay, people like Nick Chubb, all the running backs who have been working out, James Robinson. If you fit someone who fits your scheme, that seems like it's the most important thing for anyone else, because we also don't need running backs or a single running back to perform all the duties. Patriots have proved this for a long time that they will change their scheme for the defense that they're playing, whether a James White, a Sony Michel, or at the time of LeGarrette Blount, what running backs going to work, because the offense needs to be adaptable.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to be taking any of these running backs in the first round. I think Miami is going to be maybe one of the first teams to take a running back.
Yeah.
And at this point, I would say I'd rather have Najee Harris at this point, just seeing what he's been able to do in the past or all season, I guess. And, ETN, like we said, has had some rough games where I think if you're a top running back and you're just getting 30 yards in a collegiate game, no matter what defense you're playing, I don't know if you're.
It's happened multiple times too. I want to go back. I actually kind of want to look at my preseason rankings because I had Harris first coming into the year. But let me pull that up. You guys can ramble quick.
Yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up this podcast. Zoom's giving us another 5 minutes.
I did have ETN second.
Oh, yeah.
But I said he was wildly overrated.
Yeah, and I had him first coming in, so I haven't, finalized.
I have Journey Brown fourth, and we'll never see him again. So
yeah, I had Journey Brown.
That's an absolute shame. I loved him coming up.
I liked him too. Yeah. All right, so thanks to Matt for coming on as a guest on the Draft Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Vendetta Sports Media. Matt or Trey, any last notes?
No, I'm going to enjoy my week 17, and we'll see. It's going to be. I'm going to bring back the mailbag articles coming up soon. I don't know when I'll start that, but last year I think those went well, so those will be coming back.
Sweet. All right, well, let's go Miami. Need a week 17 win. Let's get into the playoffs. Matt's a Browns fan, so good luck to Cleveland as well. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow all of us on Twitter, and keep checking out Vendetta Sports Media on the website. Thanks for watching.